Project Script Discussion, Season 1, Episode 12. Today we are getting ready for the lead up to the war to begin all wars. We're getting ready to be epic. All right. So, firstly, despite its importance in these last two episodes, the frame was all but neglected in the final two episodes. Like, everybody knows that we want to end up with Bilbo and Gandalf coming back to Rivendell for the end of episode 13, but that's pretty much as far as that went.
Nick, did you go through any of the frame in the last episode? I wasn't here for the last episode.
We did. We actually worked extensively on the frame.
Okay.
Looked like Marie caught most of it. She must have a fantastic memory, because I would not have been able to do what she did and just riff all that, write down all that stuff from memory. I would never have been able to do it. That's one of the reasons why I record this, so that I can go back and watch them, so that I know what was discussed. But yeah, basically the frame, because we were doing the episode with the creation of the dwarves, and so the whole idea was that the frame opens up with the dwarves coming in, and Estelle's aware of it, but it happens in the evening, so he doesn't get a chance to meet them. The next morning, he bumps into Bilbo. Reality ensues, and hilarity as well.
Of course, naturally.
Yes, I mean, hobbits. So clearly, they go into the lesson about the story of the creation of the dwarves. That night, Estelle has a brief interaction with one of the dwarves, because we wanted we needed more stuff, because we moved even though we don't have approval for this yet, but we moved the tour of Angband from episode 11 into episode 10 to give a little bit of meat there. Just because we were dealing with 2 full episodes, and there really wasn't 2 episodes worth of content. So moving that back gives us a little bit more there. But we had a brief interlude between Estelle and one of the dwarves, which gives us a little bit of insight into the antagonism between elves and dwarves, because we're not really going to see that, because we're dealing with dwarves that are particularly outgoing and elves that are particularly welcoming. Unusually so on both counts. So it's really hard to show that antagonism between them, when, if you read The Hobbit, they get along pretty well in this particular.
As far as elves and dwarves go, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that was really the thing that Peter Jackson was struggling with when he did that sequence in the Hobbit movie, was because he really had to go off book with it, because otherwise, because everybody knows that elves and dwarves don't particularly get along. And so we ended it with Bilbo leaving Rivendell. Estelle sends him off with a gift of some eggs and bacon for him to take with him. Because what would you give him? It was suggested that he gives him something that he forgot from whatchamacallit, from Bag End, that being like a hat or something. But the hood being so iconic and such a big deal to him later on, it wouldn't have made sense to give him a hat.
Bilbo gifts him the shards of Narsil, which he's picked up somewhere, and
oh yeah, of course, yeah, no,
naturally.
But, and so that was the frame in episode 11. Episode 12, I have listened and re-listened to the 2 podcasts for episode 12 and episode 13. There is virtually no frame, so we have plenty of work to do there.
And we don't need a huge frame either.
No, we don't. I agree, but we do need to, because we're leading up to the revelation of Estelle as Aragorn, not to himself, but to the viewers. And we're leading up to the final character progression of our three main frame characters. So we can't not have them, essentially. So my questions are always when we're figuring out what we want to do with the frame is what is Elrond getting at in this story? Because a lot of times that can inform what we want to do with the frame.
And we can also think about it normally, especially with 13 episode seasons. Episode 12, I know with a lot of British TV shows that do 13 episodes, or like Game of Thrones, which does 10. The 12th episode, or in Game of Thrones, the 9th episode, it's that setup episode. It's like everyone's like, oh, okay, oh yeah, that one episode, the penultimate episode
going to happen.
Right. That one episode that doesn't really end anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, and we want to avoid that, obviously, but we know at least in the viewer's eyes, it's a possibility.
There's good reasons that those shows do that, because they definitely want to have everybody on the edge of the seat for the finale. It's also their last chance, their last couple of chances to punch the ratings for their show. Make sure that they actually have a second season. And we would really like to have a second, third, fourth, fifth, and 500th season.
We're going to need it.
Yeah. And that's not even counting spin-offs.
Right. Oh, right. Our Elendil spin-off.
Yes.
Adventures of Elendil.
Spin-off, the Adventures of Young Aragorn.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
The Tale of Helm Hammerhand, all that good stuff.
Right. Our spinoff about Hobbit lawyers and auctioneers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. All that stuff.
Right.
So we definitely want to make sure that we have everybody glued to their seats for episode 13 here. So the question is, and it was really kind of vague about this in the podcast, is where episode 12 ends, because there was some discussion over whether it ends with the death of Eonwe, whether it ends with the illuminating of the stars, or whether it ends with the declaration of war. Now, Professor Olson was saying that the declaration of war might be too deep in, because they want a 2-hour finale.
Which can we veto that too? It's unnecessary.
I agree that it's unnecessary, especially since they're doing their best to cut out action sequences.
Right. I was going to say, the only way to rationalize that is to be like, hey, it's a 2-hour episode, and an hour and a half of that is, Battle of the Five Armies, so to speak. We pull Jackson.
To be perfectly honest, I don't really have a problem with that as long as it's not corny. I really don't have a problem with...
It's not bad if it's done well.
Right. I don't have a problem with an hour and a half of having demigods slog it out with each other. I think that would be awesome. But they don't want that, so there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
I would say that we plan to have as much content as possible, and then if some of it hits the cutting room floor, then it pares it down to an hour.
Or what we do is we outline a 1-hour episode, and then when we get to the actual production phase, that's never going to happen. Our director, we say, hey, this is your outline, work with it. And you're like, oh, sorry, hey, this is what you got, deal with it.
Yep. Or just have long sequences which are just they fight.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's the magic solution to everything in a show like this.
Yeah. Because the battle to begin a wars has got to be suitably epic. Like there's
Of course. It has to begin all other wars.
Right. And I think that Professor Olsen and the other co-hosts also were concerned that if you have these huge elemental powers that are involved in the battle, then it makes the idea of foot soldiers kind of superfluous, which I understand. I get where that's coming from, but I feel like for instance, Ulmo and Aule are almost kind of like the nuclear option that the Valar may be kind of hesitant to, to like really like take it to that level until it becomes absolutely necessary.
Alternatively, I used to work as a camp counselor, and at the end of every week and at the end of the summer, we'd always have a game called Conquest with all the entire camp. And basically, it was this 8-part capture the flag. Capture the flag with 8 teams. We had just this huge campgrounds that we worked on. And so obviously when you're playing with like junior hires or elementary
it's
school
not full
kids,
contact.
Well, first of all, it's not full contact. Second of all, all the counselors are either late high school or college age.
Right.
And so it's just an understanding among the counselors. Hey, when you're playing, you have your little flag that you're trying not to get taken. When you're playing capture the flag, when you're playing against the younger kids, you don't just run through. You're not there to be a hero. You're not just stealing all these little flags from all these little campers. Yeah. So the counselor's job is to fight the other counselors. And so, when it comes to the war to end all wars, the Valar are, they're probably going to be facing the Valar, Melkor.
At least his
the
top
Maya
guys, yeah.
Right. The Maya are going to be going after the Balrogs and Ungoliant, whatever she's doing, and, all the other freelance evil people that are running around. Yeah. And if we do choose to have foot soldiers, hey, we send the armies against the armies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the concern was, Ulmo comes in and like washes away half of Melkor's guys in one fell swoop. Right. But what I'm suggesting is that
he didn't get the memo. Yeah. Not to fight the foot soldiers.
Yeah. The thing that I'm going to say is that like to the Valar, that should be like last resort kind of situation. Like they're not going to go that hard at Melkor unless they have no options.
A lot of them don't want to fight anyways. Manwë in particular.
And not all of them are particularly combat oriented. Like,
of course, yeah.
Aule and Ulmo clearly have, elemental powers that allow them to be able to, to make a big, huge dent on the battlefield. Manwë is the same. And of course, you have Tulkas, Orome, even Nessa are like your jocks, the jock squad. But Urmo and Mandos, they're not particularly martial.
Right. They're the medics.
Yeah.
They're the medics.
No, Mandos isn't a medic. He just walks slowly through the battlefield and nobody wants to go anywhere near him.
Right. He's the team mortician. He's in charge of just
he's a control mechanism. We don't want
just
them
like wanders
the enemy is starting to flank us over there. Mandos, go over there and just stand there on the corner of the line, and they won't go anywhere.
Exactly. Just stand in the middle of the battlefield. They won't attack us.
We have Eonwë 2.0 involved there, but we're getting way ahead of this. Yeah, he needs to be up against 2, maybe 3 people at once by himself, hands down.
2 or 3.
Yeah,
just be like charge it in, just like. Have you seen the John Carter movie?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the scene when like he basically gets attacked by like all the green Martians, and he's like literally just mowing them down. They're just attacking on him. They're just piling on him. He's just like buried under this pile of dead Martians. Yeah. And he's just completely slaughtered. Yeah, that's how I imagine Eonwë.
Yeah. Well, that's what that was my initial objection to the idea of him being captured and then executed by Melkor's
Right.
guys. I was like, but there's no way that's going to happen. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen. And then they were like, well, maybe he gets upgraded. And I was like, yes. Yep. Now I'm in.
He pulls a Gandalf.
Yep. Okay.
Or Gandalf pulls an Eonway.
So the question is, are we going to... I mean, I feel like the earliest we could really cut it and still have a full episode would be after the creation of the stars, after the kindling of the stars.
Yeah.
And maybe the discovery of maybe Myron's discovery of the elves.
Right. I need to pull up the episode 11 notes as well, just to see what those look like. Real quick. Remind me again what the three options that the host had were: the kindling of the stars, the declaration of war, and what was the third one?
The execution of Eonway.
Right.
Take a look at session 15.
I honestly think we could make
a timeline. Go ahead.
I think we could. Obviously, the capture, torture, and death of Eonway is an arc, and we need to treat it as such.
Okay.
But I think it would be beneficial for us to make that arc.
Hey, Garita.
Short.
Sorry.
Oh, hey, Garita. Is to make that as short as possible, because the earlier we get Eonway dead, and we get that into the minds of the Valar, the quicker that moves the rest of the Valar story along. But also, it gives us the longer gap of time between Eonway dying and Eonway coming back. And the longer we create that, the more impactful his return is going to be.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let me read off the sequence that they have here. Okay. Although it seems in the frame that they want to have Bilbo and Gandalf return back in episode 12. I don't know if we need to do that. Okay. Although they are there for a fairly long time, so I kind of get it. But they were just there in episode 11, so I don't know if I buy that. Okay. So sequence for episode 12 is Yavanna making contact with one of the mutated beasts. Myron tours Angband and finds the elves, which that can't be when that happens. The first Valar Council, this full scene arguing the pros and cons of war. Number 4 being the Eonway incident, and they have the death of Eonway ending episode 12.
Okay.
With episode 13 being disembodied Eonway returns to Lorien, which I don't like. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The reason that I don't like it, welcome back, Karina. The reason that I don't like it is because we set up that he died at the end of episode 12. And then at the beginning of episode 13, we reveal that, he's fine. It's actually, it's all good. Which it completely destroys the whole, any of the tension that was created by him being dead.
Right.
Yeah, Korea says it does kill a bit of the drama, yeah.
Conceivably, because revealing that he's in Lorien, which is kind of unescapable, we could do that right after he dies,
right?
And it is going to, it's going to cut some tension. But again, we want the audience to forget that the Eonway is a thing.
A thing, yeah.
so that when he comes back, when he flies down from the heavens and lands in all his glory on the battlefield, that's a reveal. That's
Yes.
that's an event.
I like it.
Yeah.
And because if you have him reappear, if you have him show up in Lorien at like towards the end of episode 12, it also makes the tension not about the fact that Eonwe was killed. It makes the tension the fact that Melkor did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, so I mean, I feel like that because what they have here is not for episode 12 is not a full episode. There's no question,
right,
in my mind. Now, what I see as far as the vision of Manwë and the kindling of the stars is, and I think that what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to like work through episodes 12 and 13 at the same time over this week and next week. Krita says, do the episodes air weekly in our made-up universe? Yes, I think they do.
Well, you always have to, right before sweeps week, there's always one or two weeks that they're on hiatus. So, I mean, we have a few weeks. We have
so
a few weeks to
annoying.
work with.
But the most annoying.
As someone who works for a television station, we use those hiatuses, or we don't. NBC and ABC and CBS, they use those just for the intended purpose of people just like, I want the show to come back. I want the show to come back, like specifically to get people annoyed, so that when it does come back during Sweeps Week, when they're getting all the information about what people are watching, everyone is there. So yeah, it's inevitable.
Karita says, I watch pretty much solely online and I binge watch. So this is a whole new world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, what's going to be awesome is if this thing ever got made and was, 30 plus seasons long, and then people binge watching, like they'll be binge watching this show for like a year and a half.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. You're welcome, world.
Okay. So what I envision for the kindling of the stars is that Varda's doing it while Manwë's having the vision, and so we're cutting back and forth between the vision which we really have to figure out exactly what he's seeing. Karita says, I binge watched 10 seasons of Stargate. It was intense. Maybe one day I'll binge watch every episode of Doctor Who. I've never seen any Doctor Who.
I binge watched 11 seasons of Frasier. Now it's a little different because those episodes are a half hour, but still.